Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this session on applying a gender lens to digital transformation, which is hosted by the World Savings Banks Institute. My name is Antonie Koning, and I'm gender lead at CGAP, and I'm honored to moderate today's discussion with these distinguished leaders that are advancing financial inclusion in Kenya, Nigeria, and Uganda. As the title of our session suggests, we will be focusing on their experiences with digitalization, which really is a powerful force driving change in the financial services industry in Africa and elsewhere, for that matter. Scale2Save, which is a partnership initiative between the World Savings Banks Institute and the MasterCard Foundation, has been working over the past 6 years with institutions across 6 African countries to get 1 million people banked. Scale2Save is a learning program that puts research findings into practice, and it also disseminates lessons amongst its project partners that you see here on the screen, as well as with the broader membership of the World Savings Banks Institute across the world, but also with the wider financial inclusion community. And of course, therefore, we're very, very happy that the Center for Financial Inclusion has given us the opportunity to share these experiences here at Financial Inclusion Week 2022. In today's session, the Scale2Save partners, Kenya Post Office Savings Bank, Lapo Microfinance Bank in Nigeria, and Centenary Bank in Uganda are sharing their learning from digitalizing their services to better serve women. And I'm honored, literally, to be joined by a stellar panel, which I'll introduce here. From the left to the right on the slide, you see Mr. Raphael Lekolo, who's the Managing Director of Kenya Post Office Savings Bank. We also have Ms. Dorcas Thorpe, who's the head of corporate at Lapo Microfinance Bank in Nigeria. And then last but not least, Mr. Fabian Kasi, who's the Managing Director of Centenary Bank in Uganda. And they each have an impressive track record, which you can read upon in their bios on the Financial Inclusion Week website. And I hope you will go there to find more information on them and their institutions. Throughout this session, I'd like to invite the audience to put your questions in the chat, as well as any experiences that you have and any practical learning that can be added to the topic of today's discussion. But with that, I would like to dive straight into the discussion. There's a lot to talk about. There are a lot of experiences. They're very, very rich. And we're all keen to learn more about both the successes and the challenges that these banks have encountered as they introduced innovations to better service women leveraging the digital transformation. So, Raphael, let me start with you and dive into the experience of the Kenya Post Office Savings Bank, and particularly thinking about the segments of women that you are eager to serve. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about what the client segment is that you're trying to reach, and what their needs are, and then how the digital solutions that you have been offering as Kenya Post Office Savings Bank respond to those specific needs. So over to you, Raphael.
Thank you, Antonique. Thank you, panelists, and thank you everyone who is tuned in to listen to us. And it's a pleasure for us as Postbank to give our experiences on this key topic. When I look at the segments that the bank has really been looking at, we put our segmentations on age, gender, and income. And we tailored the products for these clients and these various segments. And also we included the youth, women, and the employed, and the groups, Chama account as we call it here in Kenya, and pensioners. So those are the segments that we created out of the main demographics that we are looking at here in Postbank. When you look at our clients' needs, they mainly revolved around the ease of access, convenience, and value. So those three are quite key for us. And when you're targeting our customers who require this easy, seamless, and simple banking, right from them how to join. And when you look at the digital platform that we set them up for, we called it Bank in a Bag. It was to make it easy to recruit them from account opening stage, making it easy for them to access our banking solutions after they join our customer base. And when you look at that customer onboarding process and system, it was quite simplified to make it quite simple and enable them to be part of our clientele and to enjoy our services. What this meant is that it allowed our customers to be recruited out there in the field. They didn't really have to come to a brick and mortar branch, and they would be able to be recruited out there in the field wherever they are at their convenience. So we were able to live with them and run to them at their place of businesses without them having the discomfort of leaving their space of their comfort zone. So this encouraged them to easily join our bank. And as it was quite easy for them, because it was easy to explain to them at their point of need. So we were able to meet them at their point of convenience. This encouraged financial inclusion in all parts of the country, and where there was remote, I could say, banking services. So we're able to utilize the infrastructure that's been set up by the government, especially on connectivity through mobile phone, to integrate our systems to be able to reach this population. So this system actually allowed a very easy and mass recruitment of our clients, especially when you look at the old people who are unable to really come to a brick and mortar, or people who felt a bit uneasy coming into a branch, which would have made them a bit uncomfortable. It made them quite easy for us to interact and bring them on board. When you look at what the bank is doing currently, is just to work on upgrades on this mobile and internet banking, especially on the internet side, to enable now the more advanced, or the more, especially the youth who are internet savvy, to be able to conduct their businesses at that level. So basically what you're trying to do is bring our system up to speed to be able to meet these client needs. And especially when you look at the women who fear coming to these branches in Kenya, they are able to do their banking at a convenience that they desire. When you look at the bank's channels, especially on the mobile, we have the USSD channel, which we use to allow them to access their banking requirements. And then on the smartphone, they're able to do an app, meaning both the low income segment and the elderly are catered for, because their phones may not be that sophisticated. To stretch the kind of services that we give on this model, we've also done the agency banking model, which we dubbed mashinani agents. This basically meant that our services, especially deposits and withdrawals, had gone closer to this segment that we are targeting, which meant that they didn't even have to go far from their comfort zone. So when you look at the whole value proposition from Postbank, was to basically reach our customers at their point of need and be able to reach them both from onboarding to service delivery. And when you look at these transactions currently at Postbank, they account for almost over 10% of our transactions that have been coming through, and we hope to grow this to a much higher level.
Rafael, I'm sorry, but I think by accident you muted yourself. I don't know if this was the timer, but maybe you can, yes, unmute and maybe wrap up your intervention. Thank you.
Well, yes, that's just coming to the end. So basically what I'm trying to say is we were able to give these customers 24/7 access to their banking needs, and at their point of need and at the comfort of their locations. And also for the groups, they were able also to transact at their level of when they are meeting. These are the groups we're calling chamas. They're able to meet and finalize their financial transactions at that particular point. So they didn't have to give somebody money to bring to the bank and update the records. while it was very easy for them now to just use the mobile solutions that have been put in place for them to be able to upgrade their records. So all these values that we brought in was just to bring financial services closer to the people and to the target groups that we were targeting. Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks very much, Raphael. And your banking in a bag sounds really really intriguing, and it is actually a really intentional approach to reaching women. As you point out, it's meeting women where they are, and both individually and as groups is a very intentional effort from your side. Dorcas, let's move to Nigeria now. As a microfinance bank, you've been focused on vulnerable women from the start, I think, and your majority of your clients, I believe, are women. So maybe you can explain to us what problem are you trying to solve for which specific segments of women, and how the solutions of Lapo Microfinance Bank is actually able to meet the needs of these segments of women. Over to you.
All right, thanks, Anthony. Thanks for the opportunity to be on the platform as well. Good day, everyone. So just to, reiterate what you said, at Lapo Microfinance Bank, our focus has been women from, the start. I recall that the first set of credit we gave in 1988 was to 3 women, actually less than a $1 credit given to 3 women. And then the motivation at that time really was to alleviate poverty through, access to finance for economic activities by the women. So we've always been women focused. And I think that from the conversations that happened the whole of the week, looking at, why women are mostly excluded, financially excluded, that's really a focus for us. Access, low income, trust, education, amongst a lot of other things, reasons why, women are excluded. So for us so far, it's been how to bridge those gaps and provide easy access to financial services for women. So on the project and the product that we've done, we're very specific to women, economically active women, but still within the low income segment, young women actually between 18 to 45, who were either parents or guardians of children. If you look at in any community or any industry, women and children are the most vulnerable. So for us, we thought that speaking to that need of a mother or a guardian as to the needs for the children, whether it's education for the child or health for the child, would speak more to the mothers, and then get us to encourage them to use the financial services we were offering to them. So again, the focus was women, economically active women, young women who were either parents or guardians that had children. And so what we brought to them was a savings product that would allow them save for the future of the child and also receive interesting benefits. We bundled the savings product with insurance. I mean, in the industry today and probably around the country, insurance hasn't taken off as much as we would, but it's a very good coping mechanism for emergencies. So we thought, how do we get insurance to the low income segment to be able to cope for certain emergencies, right? So we bundled savings with insurance to our women customers. And we did that providing access. So in terms of accessibility to them, because we know that's also a challenge, we decided to use both the physical touch points and digital. I remember a speaker had mentioned and called it touch tech, right? So what's the physical touch point? Through agents. We went beyond stationary agents and to roving agents. So we brought the financial service to the doorstep of the customer. So we have women who were economically active in marketplace. We would go to them to collect the savings. That bridged that gap about convenience and access to this service. And we saw that really yield results in the years that we ran the project. So for us, it was just how do we bridge the access gap in terms of trust? How do we build trust amongst these segments of people, especially as a microfinance bank? The trust is also an issue even when you look at generic financial service providers today. But then how do we increase that trust amongst them? So being with them physically, coming to them, helped us to develop that trust in the customers that we were serving.
Excellent, Dorcas. And you've highlighted a very important point, and that is trust, and how to build trust with women that could benefit from financial services. And I also very much like the point that you highlighted in terms of making sure that the financial services actually meet the real economic needs of these women and really factor in. And obviously a lot of the times women's main concerns are with the households and with their children. So with your savings bundled insurance product and the focus on education, that is a real response to a specific need. Thank you very much. I'll move on. We'll move on to Uganda. Fabian, at Centenary Bank, you took a quite innovative approach as well, leveraging technology to better serve women customers. So maybe you can also explain what client segment were you specifically, or are you specifically targeting? What are their needs, the needs of these women, and how the digital solutions that Centenary is offering respond to those needs? Over to you, Fabian.
Thank you very much, and thank you, and good afternoon from Uganda. I'm happy to be here speaking on behalf of my company, my bank, Centenary Bank. Of course, Centenary Bank started out as an institution that was targeting ordinary people, ordinary Ugandans, especially those in the rural areas, involved in microfinance, involved in SMEs, involved in agri lending, and it was a distinguished champion for financial inclusion. At the very start, there was no gender bias, but it was basically looking at people who needed financial services, who had been excluded, as having distinguished ourselves as champions of financial inclusion. But we later realized that if we are to achieve, the objective of financial inclusion, we needed to look at certain segments of the population that had been left out of financial services. And these ones included mainly the women. And that's how we started designing special programs for women. We went into what we call a Superwoman program, specifically targeting women, addressing needs of women, but also as we were adopting technology, digitizing, we got in partnership with WSBI, whereby we developed different digital channels of access, but majorly including agent banking. And this agent banking, we also had to connect with other institutions in a linkage form. We linked with an institution called FINCA, again through these initiatives. And as we know, FINCA has been targeting majorly women. So it worked out in our favor as we tried to target as many women as possible. And in the process, we've seen a number of women that are working with us, a proportion increasing. Previously, before we started, we had less than 20%. Now we have about 36, 37% of all our clientele. And we have the biggest clientele in this market, over 2.5 million people that are banking with us. So of whom now we are talking about 35, 36% being women. So we've seen that through the initiatives of digitization, through the initiatives of designing special programs for women, we've been able to attract and include as many women as we possibly can. Of course, there's still room, but we are seeing positive strides. And we hope that going forward, we should be seeing, many more women included in the banking, in finance, and the matters that deal with money. So we are grateful with the partnership with WSBI, and we look forward to continuing including as many women as possible, because as I said, our role is financial inclusion, and our financial inclusion has been lying basically on 4 tenets. Accessibility, that's where we've designed the various channels of access. Affordability, we also look at usability, need services that address the needs now in this case of women, and eventually we also focus on sustainability of these services. That's how we've been able to, you know, be able to achieve our objective of financial inclusion in this country. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Fabian. And I like the four key areas that you're focusing on: accessibility, affordability for the women, usability, and then sustainability also from a service provider perspective. And the other point that you highlighted, which I think you can hear through the three speakers, is that you basically, in order to serve women and to address that part of the market, you have to be intentional and focus on specific needs of subsegments of women. Fabian, I'm going to stay with you for a moment. I hope you can stay on the video as well, because I wanted to follow up on your model and the kind of solutions that you have provided and the new channels that you have opened. We know that, and it's been touched upon also by Rafael, but digitally, digital transformation also has its challenges, and particularly thinking about the target audience that we have in mind. I wanted to see if you could share a little bit about the challenges that you've encountered in introducing these services and installing these channels, and the partnership as well that you mentioned with Finca. What are some of the challenges that you have encountered in this transformation, and how have you overcome them?
Well, back here we are dealing with a society, you know, where the cultural norms, you know, do contribute a lot to, you know, behaviors of people and of course behaviors of business and everywhere. And we are in an environment where, you know, in the past women were like people who are supposed to be in homes, looking after children, not to own anything. Such that now as banks, when we come in, we are faced with these cultural challenges. How do we ensure that women feel empowered, because they are coming from a background of disempowerment, you know, being dependent on their husbands, don't own assets or collateral in case you want to give them loans. So we are coming from that background, trying to develop a society of women that feel empowered, that feel, you know, financially literate, that feel that they can also own something and be able to access credit and be able to develop and grow if they have businesses and things of that nature. So we're trying to develop women from that background of dependability, that background of feeling inferiority complex and so on has been the biggest challenge. But through the deliberate means, as you mentioned, the intentional you know, programs, designing special programs for them, you know, putting them in an environment where they can speak to each other and feel that if there are other women that have developed, they can also develop, to teach them the technology, because given the fact that they are big women who are meant for, you know, homes and that kind of thing, when it comes to making them learn how to use ATMs, for example, learn how to use their cards, be able to do internet banking, be able to reach out to an agent somewhere and transact, you know, has been part of our preoccupation. And through the various means of effort that we've been doing, we've been able to achieve the results that I talked about, you know, currently having about, you know, 35% of our clients being women. And we are seeing this growing. If we see the growth in the loans, that those are that are accessing loans, I think we will see ourselves moving in the right direction. If we see, we currently have about 30% of the women using mobile banking platform, you know, which is a good progress, and we are seeing it growing. So people are getting, the women are getting used, they are getting accustomed to the new ways of doing things, modern ways, technological ways of accessing financial services. And in the process, we are seeing them become independent, become, you know, be able to develop by themselves, grow their businesses. We have certain SMEs we are seeing growing under the leadership of women, you know, and also trying to teach their fellow women to also come along, which is very good progress. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fabian. And you touched on a couple of really important points. I think that one of the challenges that you as an organization face is obviously the context in which these women, as you described them, are disempowered. So what you are doing as a financial service provider is indeed trying to help women overcome some of these barriers and show the way that it can be done differently.
Exactly.
There's a question that came in from Petronella Ditima, which may be something that you want to follow up on, because she's asking if there was anything specific in the features of your products and services that you had to change or alter to make them more suitable for women. So I think some of the things that you've described have to do with how you engage with the women, what kind of channels you use to offer them. But is there anything that you specifically change, for instance, in the loan conditions or in the requirements to make your products more suitable for women? Can you comment on that question from Petronella?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. Yes, as I said, being able to address a section of the population which was previously disempowered, which was been left behind, needed to come up with special programs. I talked about a special program that we manage, which is called a Superwoman program. Under this program, we target specifically women, organizing special fora where they come and mingle and engage with the other women that have been able to develop, that are distinguished in society. You know, that one gives them also hope that they can also be like them. In our banking halls, for example, we've designed special tiers where women can go and be served by specially trained tellers. You know, that way, when they come into the banking halls, they don't feel inferior. They are able to come in, you know, feel empowered, and they are able to be served by somebody who understands how women, you know, feel, who understands the kind of service that needs to be given to them. When it comes to loans, for example, we had to design a special product, loan product with a concessional interest. And this is a loan that wouldn't attract collateral, because we know women, you know, don't have much of assets that can act as collateral for loans. So, and you know, forming them into groups, you know, borrowing in groups and being able to be, you know, have women being keepers of the other, being able to encourage them to pay up and so on. So this way, I think we've been able to come up with a special program that has encouraged as many women as I've mentioned to be able to work with us as a bank.
Okay, thanks very much, Fabian. I think that's a good response to Petronella's question. Dorcas, I'm going back to you, also touching on some of the challenges that you had to face during the process of introducing these solutions that you have created, and how you've overcome them. But I want to layer on a question that has come in the meantime from I have to see from Annemarie van Swinderen. She, I think, is intrigued about your approach to onboard women and to make sure that women start being able to use services and do so independently. And she's wondering if you do that on a one-off basis at the beginning, or if there is a kind of coaching process of helping women use especially digital services, I think, throughout. And the specific question that she raises is the cost, because that obviously entails a cost and how you're dealing with that. And I think you've highlighted this notion that there needs to be touch tech or tech touch, I don't know how you called it, but that obviously requires human intervention, and human intervention also has its costs and can be quite intensive. So maybe you can comment a little bit on that as you think on some of the challenges that you had to overcome. And Rafael, after that, I might come to you with a similar question, because I think also your model has involved more intensive interaction, and that has a cost as well. So Dorcas, first to you.
All right, thank you. So I think that, you know, one of the lighter challenges to financial inclusion for women is access to mobile phones. And I think that's, you know, across different markets. So we know that that's a challenge even within this segment, that most, maybe not most, but quite a good number of the women that we serve do not have access to mobile phones. So in our product delivery, we didn't really entirely consider, you know, apps or mobile apps to be used right, by the women. So there was no client-facing application for the women to transact. What we did was to empower our field agents with a tablet and an app to instantly open this account when they go to the field, to collect savings and post the transactions real-time online with the device, right? And so that's how we bridged the physical touch and the tech, because we see that beyond just access to mobile phones, I mean, even literacy, tech savviness by the women was pretty low. So if you're going to transition into fully digital, then that would be a challenge. So what we've done, and it's not just one-off basis. This is the model we've been operating for a couple of years, and it's definitely cost intensive. But I think that to serve this market, you have to be willing to make some investments in things like this, as to provide access, convenience to these customers. So we've done it with the roving agents, providing them with a tablet. They go to the women, they're able to open the accounts instantly and then get those transactions in the field. I think when we talk about partnerships, we would also see that some kind of partnerships has enabled us to make that a business case and actually be profitable with that model going forward. But just to also touch on the challenges we've experienced, and from the FSP point of view, because Fabian has mentioned quite a few from the client side. From the financial service provider side, I think that infrastructure, it's one big challenge that you may encounter when you begin to think about digital finance. You as an FSP needs to be ready with infrastructure, and it could even just be the robustness of your application internally to offer these services, even up to the infrastructure, network connectivity to serve the customer, especially when you now talk about going to the rural locations where there are limitations there. So you have those kind of challenges as to infrastructure for the FSP. There are a few others. We also have product suitability. One thing we experienced with the product that we launched first was, yes, we understood the market, but probably didn't see the magnitude of the effect of the suitability of the product. So this is what I mean. With the microinsurance product we started with, it was a life insurance. And with the cultural thing in Nigeria and Africa, insurance and life insurance is something we say, God forbid, I'm not going to die anytime soon. And that doesn't encourage people to have life insurance. And we saw that didn't make so much impact. We had to quickly change to something that they would find more beneficial to them. And so we moved from life insurance to fire and burglary for their business locations, and then again moved from that to health insurance for them. So if you look at a year period, you would expect some basic illnesses to occur, and then they have the ability to claim. So once they experience that on the microinsurance aspect, they're able to trust the process, trust the advantage of insurance, and then begin to also get on board. So suitability of the product is important for the FSP to consider, looking at the actual needs of the clients and then meeting those. Another thing is literacy levels, even for the client and also for your field workers or the staff within the FSP. Looking at microfinance, over the years, we have been so credit focused, right? So moving from credit to deposit, there needs to be a cultural change even within the organization. Cultural change of customer service, customer experience as to deposits and savings. And so that needs to happen to support the product for us internally. So we did a lot of trainings internally, and also training the clients on savings and also on insurance, getting them to really understand what the product and the benefits were for them. Then again, for the clients, like Fabian has mentioned, as to the cultural changes and challenges that are there would be a lot of trainings and sensitization as well for the clients. And then acceptance and trust is also a challenge that we faced, and I mentioned that earlier on. it's quite difficult. In Nigeria, people would definitely trust to go to deposit money banks, so like the commercial banks, to save, but then come to the microfinance banks to get credit, right? So in terms of trust to keep their funds with a microfinance institution, that's a challenge. How do we go around that? We had to sensitize a lot. We had to do a lot of marketing, below the line marketing, market awareness, talking about the brand and what we've done, in the industry for the last 33 years. We had to go to them physically. So the channel of roving agents actually helped build that trust as well amongst our clients.
Great, excellent. Well, that's a really good demonstration of how you kind of iterate and try new things, responding to the needs of your customers and responding to the findings of the experiments that you've done with the support of the Scale2Save program. There's a question actually from Liz McInnes on your introduction of the roving agents and also the children's savings products. She's wondering whether LAPO has continued both these efforts beyond the time of the project, which was supported by the grant from the WSBI and the Scale2Save program. So am I hearing that you are continuing? Because you just mentioned the roving agents are very important and helpful. So
very important, yes. And we're going to use partnerships to also drive that scale of that. And probably there'll be time to discuss that here as well.
Yeah, excellent. Now we will come to the partnerships, but I'm first going to move to Rafael. Rafael, you also encountered some challenges in the process of introducing your banking in the bank and the service to both individuals and groups. So maybe you could also highlight specifically those that are related to the digital transformation and in relation to the women that you're trying to serve and how you've overcome those challenges, which I think will be useful for the listeners. Hopefully. Go ahead, Rafael.
Okay, thank you. I think we face similar challenges with what Fabian and Dorcas has really brought to fore, especially on the cultural side. As Fabian clearly explained, the challenges of the women where they do not want to be at the forefront in dealing with financial matters because of cultural beliefs. So basically what we've been trying to do to them is do a lot of financial literacy training and telling them that they're also in control of their own destiny and giving them trust in that the systems we have built will protect their privacy and that their financial data that they have with the bank is private to them and that it's not accessible to anyone else. And that basically brought them to the bank. Another key issue which has been touched on by Dorcas is financial literacy and also just the literacy level of our customers. What we did was to make the digital products, especially the ones on the phone, a bit easy to use and accessible. So we didn't go for products that only rely on smartphone. Ours also rely on USSD. So for these small phones, which is available to most Kenyans, you're able to still transact on our system. We got a little help from the Kenyan telecom companies. A lot of them have really pushed down the prices of the phones. When you look at a typical starter phone for customers or for people who need to access telecommunication services and also what we call M-Pesa or mobile money in Kenya, those phones go for as low as USD 10. So we didn't really have to intervene in that regard because as they were pushing for business, the telecom companies actually pushed down the prices of these phones and also offered credit for phones. And people were able to pay slowly for those phones. So in terms of getting phones on the hands of the women, it was quite easy because the low prices actually made it possible for them to access the phone. So the ease of now having a phone was there. And then now when we walked in with our bank in a bag, it was now easy to recruit them and bring them on board and just to build that trust, because building that trust was quite critical for us so that they're able to enjoy what you're able to do with a sense of security that their money is safe, that it's available anytime. And as they got to use it more times, it made it quite easy for them to recruit even the others. So from their word of mouth, they're able to recruit even the other groups and other women to become part of us. Another key success story for us in that period was the use of sales agents. So we had sales agents who we trained and who were there in their locality, and these are people from their own location who would be able to talk to them in a language that they understand, but they're also literate in terms of technology, and they understood our products and they were able to sell. We were doing that and paying a small commission to them. On the issue of budget, as you know, the rolling out such a program is quite expensive and may have a long payback period. We had our partners who came in to assist us to set up the bank in a bag. We're very grateful to WSBI and Scale2Save Program, which came in to take a little bit of that budget off our back so that we're able to now reach out to these groups, both in terms of the software development and also the hardware bit. Also, one key thing that we had to do is, especially when you're targeting the groups where most women were, what you call chamas, these groups where women meet together to do table banking. One of the key things was to ensure that there was accountability in terms of the transactions that they were making, both in terms of deposits and withdrawal, and especially withdrawal, because that's where you normally have a challenge. We had to design a system that also sends messages to most of the key people in the groups, especially the officials, and the others, if they require, we can send all the transactions, especially if somebody is doing a withdrawal. So each particular transaction is broadcasted to all the members of the group. So nobody can really transact without the knowledge of the group. And this built up confidence in that people were sure that their money was safe, and the group members were accountable, and they were able to account for all the transactions because each particular member was privy to any transaction that that went through. Another key challenge for us was keeping those transactions low, especially the costs, and making it affordable. Because as I've described and as it's been brought out, the cost of this infrastructure is not cheap, and the tendency is you try and recover the money through those transaction costs. What we did was to try and build up the volumes and keep those transactions costs down. So when you look at the transaction cost for these accounts, it's quite low in terms of if they're going to withdraw, the transaction costs are low. If they're doing mobile deposits, we made it free. So it was a free deposit, but you pay a little bit when you're withdrawing. So basically what this was doing was to try to increase volumes and make sure that people are encouraged to save and to utilize that service. Because if you make it a bit expensive, then people would shy away and not utilize the service. So that's what we did. Another key thing that we were faced with is most of the women in this segment are illiterate, so they would use their children to transact on their behalf. So they would have the PIN number and they would give it to these young people in the family who would steal the phone and go do transactions and then bring the phone back while the person would not know what has happened. So we did a lot of financial literacy training, telling them how key it is to keep their PIN safe, not to divulge it to anyone so that nobody gets access to their accounts, and that the sole point of transaction for them would be the PIN. If they kept their PIN safe, then they would be able to safeguard their money. So quite key in that whole process was to tell them, take care of your accessibility through that PIN. So basically that's been our journey, and the others I think have been covered by Fabian and Dorcas with all those challenges we faced. Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks very much, Rafael. And I really like that you put some really concrete examples of what were the challenges that you had to overcome, both building the trust, for instance, the security of privacy for the women that you highlighted, but also the transparency in the groups, for instance, to making sure that people knew where their money was at every point in time. And then your last example about the PINs is, of course, a very, very important one as well, to build trust and security for women to engage. I'll go back to Fabian, because there was a question in the chat which I had also wanted to ask you, but Liz McGuinness was wondering if you could explain a little bit more how the partnership that you have with Finca works. And I think after you speak, Dorcas, I also would like to come to you to get some understanding of how LAPO is also leveraging partnerships to achieve its goals for serving women. But first, Fabian, to you, the specific example that you highlighted on the collaboration with Finca. How does that work?
Well, thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier on, our focus hadn't been on women, but we realized later that if we are to achieve our objective of financial inclusion, we had to deliberately go for this segment of the population. And of course, we knew that there are other institutions which had been working with women for some time, and Finca was one of them. And through the partnership with the WSBI, we made our systems ready to be able to serve the customers of Finca. Because the way the law is here in Uganda, the MDIs or microfinance deposit-taking institutions like Finca are not allowed to carry out agent banking. Yet Centenary has one of the biggest agent banking network. We have almost 6,000 agents. So we wanted to ensure that we avail the customers of Finca to our channel of agents. And that's how their system, their core banking system, was configured to work with our core banking system and agent banking system, such that their customers with the identification with the cards they had acquired through Finca, their organization, they were able to approach our agents and be served by our agents. And in the process, we've seen quite increased access by the women that customers of Finca, and we are seeing it increasing. And of course, that one also helping Finca to be able to do other things rather than always having their customers to look for their banking holes. And that one was a win-win thing for both of us, being able to increase on our outreach for women, but also being able to offer a channel of service to the women that bank with the Finca.
Thanks very much, Fabian. A partnership that has a win-win always is the better way to go. Dorcas, can you say a little bit more about the situation of LAPO Microfinance Bank in terms of what kind of partnerships have helped you? I mean, you've referred to some products like the insurance products, for instance. I imagine you're working with other companies as well, but maybe also on the other activities that you mentioned in terms of the coaching. So maybe you can share with the audience what partnerships have made you succeed.
All right. Just to take off from where I left off in terms of the roving agents and how we're doing that effectively. So of course it's costly. What we've done is to have these people go to clusters. So usually markets. So if you send one roving agent to a market, it has access to a lot more people within that market location than going one-on-one to doorsteps. So we use that as well to reduce the cost of service for the roving agents. We've also, partnered with some market associations. So they have members, and so we're partnering with market associations to provide these products to their members. We've partnered with schools as well to get the parents of children get on board the product. So partnership with schools have also given us access to a lot of the target audience that we're looking at. For the insurance, we started first with partnering with an insurance company, and then we had some challenges there because the model doesn't really sit right for this the segment that we're looking at. And so with the entrance of micro insurance companies, that has actually brought insurance closer to this segment in how they're able to provide the service, the process of claims, the documentation required, and all of that has actually been reduced, by the microinsurance companies that we have today. So partnership with them has actually helped us with the product. In terms of funding, really, the partnership with WSBI was very instrumental in in the scale that we achieved over the last couple of years. Because like I said, you have to do a lot of marketing sensitization, and that's quite expensive. So funding, we really appreciate the support of WSB and the Scale2Save program that we did. Lastly, for us is, I think that even partnership and collaboration with informal thrift collectors is something that will work. So we know that these women sometimes would save informally. You'd have the informal thrift collector come to them, record in a sheet of paper, collect the savings. Could FSPs not partner with those informal providers to offer the service? And partnership could be even providing them the tools. So it could be a digital platform as well, a device to enable them serve those customers, get those customers on board the formal financial sector through those partnerships with informal players here. Because I mean, the challenges are so much that the FSPs alone can't solve the problem. So partnership and collaboration with different players would definitely help us scale, and we're exploring the partnership with informal players within this space as we make progress with the product after the WSBI project.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I think that's a really good, both of you given a really good illustration of how powerful and efficient partnerships can be to advance your goals and to leverage comparative advantages of different kind of parties as well. I don't think that we have any other questions at the moment in the chat. So I just want to move to another topic that some of you have touched on, and actually, Dorcas, you just mentioned some of it, but each one of your organizations has had to build some skills, I believe, to better understand women and to serve women. Now, Dorcas, in your case, you said, you know, women was the focus from the beginning, and you've always been intentional about that, but you've had to build other skills, right? You mentioned the credit to the savings dimension. In the case of Kenya Post Office Savings Bank and Centenary Bank, I can imagine that there are certain skills that you've had to build within your teams as well to be more sensitive to the needs of women. You've both touched on the cultural change that's also required from a more norms perspective, helping women to feel more empowered, but that empowerment starts within, I would say, within your organizations. So I wonder if you could comment a little bit, and maybe Dorcas, I'll give the floor first to you and then go to Fabian and Rafael briefly before we close. And this may be kind of the final question for you to address this notion of what is it that you internally in the organization had to change from a skills and management perspective to be ready to make the investments, Dorcas, that you mentioned, which are long-term investments to reap the benefit and really expand your market share serving women, those women that you specifically target.
All right, thank you. So I think the biggest one was that, you know, cultural change within the organization, and we had to do that through a change management program, of which WSBI was a big part of that as well. We had coaches from WSBI support the change management for us to become more customer-centric, more customer-focused in service delivery, and that happened across the institution at different levels. So that was one big change. We had to do a lot of trainings, sensitizations, role plays, and just, you know, to get people to really have a mindset shift, really. Another thing we did in terms of infrastructure, again, we had to invest in that. Within this period, we had to change our core banking solution to one that was, you know, more robust, could easily, that was more flexible as well, could and adaptable to the changes you see in the market and in, you know, changes within the digital space today. We've also had to look at data, really. Even when we focused on women, we had to really begin to look at gender or sex disaggregation of data to get more insight into the women we were serving, what were their patterns, the transactions that are happening. So there was a lot of investment in the data scientist group that we have, data analysis group that we have. We had to get more skill set there to be able to dissect the data and give us, you know, better informed insights from those data. Probably one more other thing is to look at customer research. We needed to do some more research on the customers across board. Got support also from IGO.org, who helped with that as well. And so those kind of changes happened within the institution to provide more better services, to really understand the customers better and then provide better services.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Dorcas. And you've touched on the golden measure of getting gender disaggregated data, which I think throughout this Financial Inclusion Week sessions has come through quite a lot already. So maybe Rafael and Fabian, I can ask you briefly to talk about the skills building, but let's narrow it down to this specific point. What did you have to do on the data side in particular, building your capabilities within the organizations to be able to have the data to improve your decision making for serving women customers?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, of course, what we did was to create a special unit, a special team of staff that were targeted at serving women. Women, ladies who had learned or trained to understand how to serve the women. But on top of that, also occasionally we would always engage with the influential women in society to come and speak to, first of all, our staff, but also to be able to speak to our customers. Now, coming to systems, internal systems, data, and so on, we had to ensure that our core banking system is able to distinguish between a lady and a gentleman, a man and a woman, the youth and the adults, so that at any one time, if we want information, we are able to spool the data and we're able to know how are the women doing, how much loans have been extended to them, how are those loans performing, and that kind of stuff. Data basically creating in the general ledger, creating a line that is able to show how much income we are getting from women and so on. So that way we are able to granulate, data, we are able to granulate information and be able to understand behaviors for women better, and thereby being able to design suitable products for them.
Excellent. Very, very well put. I especially like the point that you highlight that once you have that insight and information, you also know how much it's actually bringing to the bottom line, which then also informs other decisions, of course. Rafael, final word to you before we conclude.
Thank you, Antonique. For us, it was quite interesting because we had to really look at this new segment, and we had to tweak our organizational structure just to see how to address the needs that's been created. Once we went into agency banking, it meant that we had to have an agency office which would track all these kind of transactions, how they come and how to improve on it. So the marketing department also had to be tweaked so that they could come up now with the direct marketing and addressing the product needs of the women, both in terms of the price, we meet the pricing needs, how do we structure it. So the skill set had to be built around these two key new areas. So we had to bring staff on board, and especially on strategy and marketing, just to ensure that they of the customer. And also it cuts across now to the technical side, because this was now a new development on mobile and on agency banking. So the technology team had to be beefed up and bring people with that kind of skills. We're able now to build a robust system that will be able to give a seamless solution to these customers, so that what we were promising the customers, we're able to deliver. So it cuts across right from the strategy team all the way down to the branches, where now we had to give our salespeople on the ground tips on how to operate the system, because bag in a bag meant that they had now to go out there to open accounts. So you had to start now teaching them what you need to require on KYC requirements, ML requirements, what to tell the customers. And that was quite key for us to succeed.
Sorry, Rafael, I have to cut you off here because we get a note that this webinar is about to be wrapped up. I want to say thank you to the panelists and to the audience for great questions and a good conversations. I'm taking away that a couple of key points: be intentional, use sex disaggregated data to drive your decisions, and take a segmented approach, understand your customers well. We have some resources in the FinEquity community of practice on women's financial inclusion that can help financial service providers with this. And I would definitely like to guide you to that. And finally, just to make the point that to ensure a gender balance and diverse leadership at all levels in the financial service industry, I think is what we need to get to a more gender equitable financial system. So I want to say thank you all, and I hope we can continue the conversation offline. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, everyone.